In today's show, we kick off our season review series talking Deni Avdija. After a career year in his first season in Portland, is Deni Avdija ready to take an even bigger step in year 2 with the Trailblazers? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're kicking off our season review series where we'll run down the entire roster, talk about what players did, and have a visit from Michael from the past, revisit my preseason predictions, where I thought players would finish, and decide whether I was right or wrong way back when I did these in September. And then we'll look ahead to next season to close the show. Based on what we've seen this year, what can we project as a likely role or a likely next step forward or backward in some cases for every player on the roster. We're kicking off our player review, season review series with none other than Deni Avdija. All Deni Avdija did in his first year with the Portland Trailblazers was put up career best numbers. That's a career high in points. That's a career high in rebounds. That's a career high in assists. That's a career high in steals. That's a career high true shooting percentage and the highest usage of his career. He was asked to take on a bigger role, and he did it even more efficiently. Deni Avdija was freaking good. The overall numbers: 16.9 points, 7.3 rebounds, 3.9 assists on 47.6% shooting, including 36.5% from three and 78% from the free throw line. He averaged 30 minutes across 72 games, including 54 starts. It didn't start great for Deni, quite frankly. He started the first 10 games of the season on a new team after coming over in an off-season trade where the Blazers sent 2 first-round picks and Malcolm Brogdon to Washington in order to acquire the then 23-year-old Deni Avdija entering his 5th NBA season. He had his best year of his career in year 4 in Washington, and particularly the second half of that year in Washington, he had played his best basketball. But he was coming over to a new situation with new teammates and a new coach and a new system, new city, all of that. Moved to Portland in September in earnest after spending most of the summer back home in Israel, and took him a while not only to just find his footing in a new city, but also find his footing on a new team in that new place. And over the first 10 games of the season when he was in the starting lineup, Deni wasn't very good. He averaged 9.9 points, 2.9 boards, 6 boards and 2.9 assists. But he just couldn't make shots. Shot under 37% from the field, including an abysmal 19% from 3. That's 6 for 32 from 3 over the first 10 games and 76% of the free throw line. And then he was moved out of the starting lineup after 10 games. And game 11 was worse. Oh, no. That was the night the Blazers lost by 45 points to the Memphis Grizzlies. In Deni Avdija's first game off the bench, he went scoreless in 13 minutes. Rut row. The season seemed to be unraveling. And Deni Avdija, the big off-season acquisition, hadn't been a positive yet. While he had some moments during those opening 11 games where it's like, yeah, I think Deni can help, he hadn't done the helping part yet. And he spent the next 5 weeks in a reserve role with just 2 spot starts over the following 20 games. And then, thanks in part to an injury to Monty Kamara, Deni Avdija moved into the starting lineup in the end of December, on December 28th. And then he comes at his first starts after spending over a month as a reserve. He had 21, 5, and 5. Okay. Deni can hoop. Now, he had some big games off the bench. He had a 28.9 against the Jazz as a reserve, 27.9, as off the bench against the Jazz. But he had still been playing off the bench. They traded 2 first-round picks for him. He wasn't supposed to be someone who was losing minutes. He was supposed to be someone taking a step forward, and this was the beginning of the major step forward. After missing 3 games with an ankle injury in early January, he became a permanent starter on January 19th. That's when the Blazers moved Shaedon Sharpe to a bench role. They rolled with the 3 veteran wings, and eventually when Jeremy Grants had to miss time, and then as season was done, Shaedon Sharpe moved back into that role, but Deni didn't go anywhere. Once he came back from injury on January 19th, he took off. Over the final 34 games, that's from the number that he played over his final 34 games. I think the Blazers played 41 over that stretch, but over his final 34 games, Deni Avdija averaged 20 points, 20.2 points, 8.3 boards, and 4.6 assists, and he was even better after the All-Star break. Post-All-Star Deni looked like a star. He averaged 23.3 points, 9.7 boards, and 5.2 assists. He shot 50% from the field, 50.8% from the field, nearly 51, including 41.7% from 3 over those final 20 games on 5.8 attempts per game. Like pretty good volume, flirting with 42% from 3 and 78% from the free throw line. Over those final 34 games, from January 19th on, he eclipsed 38 times. He had 8 30-point games, including 2 30-point triple-doubles. Deni Avdija was the star that was promised. I don't even know if he was straight the star that was promised. In fact, the Blazers were excited about him, obviously prioritized getting him and paid the price to make sure he was on the roster, et cetera, et cetera. But Deni took a breakout season 4 and took an even further step in season 5. And if you believe that his close to the season is replicable, and certainly a 20-game sample is not a massive sample, a 20-game sample in February and March is not a massive sample, but it's a bunch of games where he played really well. And if you look at the bigger season, like bigger sample, 28-5, that's 20 points, 8 boards, 5 assists over the final 34 games as a starter and like a big minute role. That's a dude who can help. Deni got more chances on the ball this year than he had in previous seasons. He after his season in Washington, he set a career high on 3-point shooting, his 3-point accuracy. But most of that, the bulk of that, came on shooting corner threes. He was lights out from the corners, shot north of 45% from the corners because he was an off-ball player for the most part of his season in Washington. In Portland, he shot a career high above the break on some self-created threes, on guys going under as on pick and rolls, or spacing to the wings off of other drives. Like the shooting, while it wasn't as accurate, the volume was way up, and the shooting from a career best shooting from above the break, the harder 3-pointers and the 3-pointers that is more like ball in your hands type of shot creator threes. Deni Avdija was really stinking good. And that's really the takeaway here. There isn't some spicy take about Deni was actually anything else. Once he found his footing, he was good. And to close the season, he was better than good. To close the season, actually, why not get a little spicy here in our first one? To close the season, Deni Avdija was an all-star. You do not become an all-star by playing a really good stretch of 20 games in March and April, right? Or the end of February into April. But if Deni Avdija were to repeat that production, 23, 9.7, 5.2, on the type of efficiency he had, 50% from the field, including 42% from 3, 41 and some change percent from 3, those are all-star numbers. The challenge of making an all-star team is, you have to have some team success, and you have to do it over the first 40 games of the regular season while voting is still open, and you kind of have to make your case, with about a week out from the all-star game. Like you earn it by playing 45 really good games to begin the season. But if Deni was, as one particular podcaster in this space was a little wary of the price the Blazers paid on the trade market. Not because I didn't think Deni was good, and you'll hear from Michael from the past momentarily, and I was pretty high on Deni at the time. But I just thought it was kind of a steep price for where the Blazers were going to be. And now they've got a 24-year-old who has some real upside and some on-ball creation juice and some passing ability, and a guy who just was such a good tone setter. And that's really what I appreciated most about Deni's play this season. It wasn't just the accuracy and the box score numbers. It was that he played Deni Avdija's basketball all season long. Once he kind of figured out where he was going to fit, and I think that was a lot of it over the first 10 games, and even maybe throughout the whole first 2 months of the season when he was still in a reserve role. Once he kind of figured out how he was going to be utilized and where his spots were going to be, Deni was such an incredible tone setter. The physicality he plays with on offense, the relentlessness with which he drives, the confidence which he played, the versatility he played with on both ends of the court. You know, in a very believable way, I think Deni's defense took a little hit this year. He was a much better defender earlier in his career when he was just asked to do less on offense. He did more than he's ever done on offense. His defense took a little bit of a hit. That is a very normal basketball thing. But he was still a pretty darn good defender, and he was a huge part of the Blazers' excellent defense to close the season. It means like maybe his individual defense wasn't as sparkling as it could be, but a career high usage rate with a career high efficiency on the other end really offsets a slight step back on defense that still allows you to be a cog in a very good defensive team. This was a heck of a season from Deni, and a season that was he was the best player on the Blazers pretty much. I don't know when exactly that became clear, but at some point by the middle of January, it was like, yeah, I think he's been their best player. And by the end of the season, it is without controversy. The Blazers' best player is Deni Avdija. I think the larger question is, how good can you be if Deni Avdija is your best player? And that will be something they have to figure out moving forward. But if your best player is like a 23, 10, and 5 dude who shoots 40% from 3, you're going to be really good. Those are good numbers. Maybe not like elite level, championship level good, but like if the best version of Deni is a version of Deni that exists for 70 games, they're in a really good spot. And if he's a little bit worse than that, because that's, hot shooting, 20 games can be a somewhat noisy sample size. Like if he's a little bit worse than that, well, you've still got a darn good NBA starter who can be a huge part of the next good version of the Blazers, even with a slight step back from his absolute peak to close this season. Speaking of peaks and polls and best and worst case scenarios, I want to take a visit from Michael from the past. So we'll do in the second segment. We'll talk about where I thought way back in September Deni would fall this season, where he would land production-wise this season, and see how right or maybe how wrong I was. Join me in that second segment, won't you? Before we do that, I want to tell you about Game Time. It's the place to buy tickets to sporting events, whatever those sporting events might be. Right now, we got the NBA playoffs about to kick off this weekend, the NHL playoffs not far behind. And there is nothing like being in the arena for a big game. It's electric, a very special time. And Game Time allows you to get into those arenas and have that special time without the stress, because you can get last-minute tickets. You can go last-minute ticket hunting on the app designed to let you go last-minute ticket hunting. It's fast and easy to get those tickets to the big games. When demand is sky high, Game Time is going to help you out, because prices on the app actually go down as tip-off or puck drop gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Plus, when you're looking at the app, the all-in pricing feature means there's no surprises at checkout. What you see is what you get. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's program is also brought to you by My Underwear, and it could be your underwear. Indeed, I am talking about Skims. You might know Skims, a brand famous for making femme underwear, but guess what? They're making underwear for everybody. Whatever your style, whatever your flavor of undergarments are, Skims is making a very comfortable pair that will fit your needs. Whether you're someone who is looking to live an active lifestyle and hit the gym, or you just want to be comfortable sitting at your desk, Skims has got you covered. They were kind enough to send me over a couple pairs, and here's the compliment I will pay them. They're extremely comfortable, and then I don't notice them, because that's the most important part about wearing underwear, is that when you are going about your daily life, you do not think about your undergarments. That is bad. Skims, no bad news, just really comfortable underwear. So whether you're looking for the stretchy 5-inch boxer brief or the 3-inch cotton boxer brief or anywhere in between, any other styles, you're going to find it over on Skims. That is skims.com/LockedOnNBA, and you can shop the Skims Men's line plus all of their other lines over at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and at Skims stores. And once you make your purchase online, let them know we sent you. After you place that order, select podcast in the survey, and then select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, let's talk Deni. Let's do it. Way back in September, If you're new to the program, and many of you probably are, if you're Deni Avdija fans and you are coming over here from Locked On Wizards, what's up? I'm happy to have you. Thanks for hanging. In any case, what I do each season is heading into the season is I do player previews, much like we're doing sort of these player reviews, season reviews at the end of the season, heading into the season in September, as lead up to the season. We do little player capsules, expectations for how they're gonna play, their role, et cetera. And in those player previews, I do best case and worst case scenarios for every player on the roster, kind of setting the polls, what I think like the most positive possible outcome could be, and the worst. And the worst outcome. It's best within reason and worst without injury is the catchphrase. So let's visit Michael from the past and see what I had to say about Deni way back in September and how right or maybe how wrong I was. Michael from the past, take it away, brother. What's the best case scenario for Deni Avdija? It's that he answers all of the Blazers' questions. The player that they traded for and acquired to be their starting forward is exactly the answer to all the questions this team poses. That is, who's going to add secondary playmaking? Deni Avdija. Who's going to add additional shooting on the wing? Deni Avdija. Who's going to add additional and valuable point of attack defense? Deni Avdija. Who's going to add a ruggedness and a toughness we were missing? Deni Avdija. Who's going to unlock our transition attack that we really wanted to get to last year and for a variety of reasons never did? Yeah, Deni Avdija. He's the one. I think Deni's going to have a bunch of opportunity to be a secondary playmaker, to be a primary defender, to be a guy who can complement his teammates by playing off the ball, who can toggle on the ball and be versatile on both ends of the floor. And the best case scenario is that if Deni does all of those things, he not only answers all the questions the Blazers pose, because really a lot of their weaknesses this season, Deni Avdija in theory checks that box. The best case scenario is that he's, after finishing 6th in MIP voting a year ago, he climbs up into the top 5. Maybe he's a finalist even in the top 3. Maybe he wins the dang thing because the opportunity is there and the talent is there. It's hard to do it twice, but Avdija, if he continues the trend that he set last season, the best case scenario is that he's even better in his first season in the Portland Trail Blazers uniform. So what's the worst case scenario for Deni Avdija? It's that he's just not quite that. He's useful, but he is not the solution. I don't think there's a world in which Deni Avdija is like all of a sudden a bench player on the Trailblazers, right? You look at their roster, you look at his sort of skill set, you look at what they gave up to trade for him, you look at his age, like he's going to play, they're going to carve out minutes for him. I don't think there's a situation where it's all of a sudden like, yeah, Deni plays 20 minutes a night and like comes off the bench for 8 of the 14 games in January or whatever it is, right? Like I don't think there's a world in which he gets pushed out like that. There is a world where he plays a little bit less because of the 3 guards, but mostly the worst case scenario is that Deni Avdija is clearly answers some, but not all of the questions. And while he is a useful part and then like clearly a useful player, I think that's the worst case scenario. He remains a very useful player, but he's just not the solution. Thank you, Michael from the past. I think Deni Avdija pretty much hit the best case scenario. Maybe not technically, right? Because if the best case scenario was that he finished in the top 5 in MIP voting and got climbed up the ladder from the previous season when he also got MIP votes, I don't think he's going to end up in the MIP voting. Like he's just probably not. The betting favorites right now are Dyson Daniels, Cade Cunningham, Austin Reeves, Christian Brown, and Evan Mobley. I don't think. It seems unlikely that Avdija will, just like because the award is flawed in its own way. It's just like kind of a bad award. I don't think Avdija will end up in the top 5 in MIP voting. I don't think don't think he'll be a finalist, which would be a top 3 for MIP voting. But I bet he'll get MIP votes. Certainly he'll appear on some ballots. I have no doubt about that. But in terms of so maybe I wasn't technically 100% correct in my best case scenario prediction, but certainly he seemed to be the answer to all of the Blazers' questions. Doesn't that seem to be what Deni Avdija turned into? I certainly believe that that's what Deni ended up looking like by the end of the season, because indeed he was the guy who juiced their fast break with his grab and go buckets, and it kind of changed some of the rules in the Chauncey Billups' offense, is that anyone who grabs a rebound can push. They're really in favor of pushing, and they've been so just half court and so slow. And I think that was, that was obviously Damian Lillard's preference, and then it was, Anthony Simon's preference, little Damian Lillard protege. And so like Deni kind of helped push them in a direction that the coach had always wanted to go, but had not, for a variety of reasons, been able to get them there. I think his versatility really helped on defense. Like I said, maybe his individual defense slipped a little bit, but the Blazers were a very good defense. The advanced numbers suggest that the Blazers were actually better on defense when Deni sat, like the on-off numbers, than when he played. But I think that has a lot to do with maybe just like Chris Murray being good on defense and not anywhere else, because that's like the guy who was coming in for him a bunch when he was sitting. And I think Jeremy Grant had mostly a bad year except on defense, and Tumani was obviously a good defender as well. So there's some guys, that would have specifically played in his forward minutes on the bench that would have helped the defense. But in general, the Blazers won Deni's minutes. He was one of the most positive on-off players on the team. He was a huge help on offense, and he was just like straight up good. He was the answer to their questions, the secondary playmaker, and at times a primary playmaker, although I'm not sure that you want like point Deni to be like a permanent thing, but more Deni with the ball in his hands certainly is going to be something that moves forward. There's some sort of balance between Deni as a full-time point guard and Deni as a dude who dribbles and gets to make decisions a bunch, because when Deni is a dude who dribbles and gets to make decisions a bunch, he looks pretty good. I think Deni Avdija hit his best case scenario. I try not to do numbers because I think like predicting a guy's averages in those segments is maybe a little foolish in September. Like, here's what this guy's going to average. Sometimes I do it, but it's like I tend to shy away from it intentionally. But I'll keep it a buck. On Deni's season averages, I probably would have said, yeah, he'll probably 17-8, right? Like that's who Deni's gonna end up being. Is like he ended up at 17-7-4 was his season averages. But the averages that like in the second half of the season, like following January 19th, when he was like a full-time starter and like got the ball in his hands more, I would never have said he was going to be like, he would have outperformed my expectations from those final 34 games when he was a 28 and 4.5 guy. Like 20 boards, 8 rebounds, and 4.5 assists would have been much higher than I would have said, yeah, Deni's going to be good, but I wouldn't have said that good. Like I didn't say that there. And certainly I was high enough on him even in September that he maybe didn't hit my highest levels of appreciation, but of best case scenarios. But I think he damn near hit the pendulum, swung damn near all the way to that end, and he was really good. What I want to do to close the show is talk about what's next for Deni. And I want to answer this question because I mentioned in the first segment that if Deni Avdija plays like he did in the final 20 games of the regular season, those are all-star numbers. Can he be an all-star? Let's talk about it. Join me in the third segment. Before we do that, I want to tell you about Fire TV. Amazon's Fire TV can also be an Xbox. How cool is that? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. You just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. And it's easily as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows, you can be playing games. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Obviously, you can still use your Fire TV for all of your favorite subscription services that you already subscribe to, but if you are indeed a gamer, you can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Or if you already own a console, but you got another TV somewhere else in the house, your Fire TV Stick 4K devices is a more affordable way to add another console, add another gaming spot in your home, or you can take it with you and go when you go on the road. It's a way to travel with your game, so all the little gamers in your family, or if you're the little gamer in your family, can just plug in and play wherever you want to. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. That's Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices: Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Still a pass versus point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you still listening to Locked On Blazers. I want to answer a simple question here to close the show. Can Deni Avdija be an all-star? Is he ready to make the all-star jump? I think the simple answer is yes, he could be, right? Like, obviously, he could be. And that's not an answer for everyone, right? I don't mean to say like every player in the league, all 450 players in the league could be an all-star. That's how it works. That is a little bit pedantic, and it does sound like something I would say on this program, so forgive me for mocking myself here. But I just think like the production you saw and the consistent production you saw for a dude who turned 24 in January and is going to have very likely a very similar role, if not even more, like an expanded version of his big role that he had to close the season. Like, Deni's going to get opportunity. He's going to get the ball in his hands. I think he's going to have more comfort with his teammates. In theory, he'll have better teammates because the young players will improve, and the Blazers are, at least theoretically, as we sit here in April, trying to upgrade the roster. And a guy who averages over the final 35 games of the season 20 points, 8 boards, and 5 assists is at least, and you're 24 years old, and you're like, the graph is still clearly going up. Certainly, you have a very realistic chance of making the All-Star team, or at least flirting with the All-Star team. And that's a bigger sample size. If you go smaller, and I know that there's a general feeling that basketball games, NBA games in March are kind of nonsense. People use the phrase Mickey Mouse March because it's just not the same level of competitive basketball once you get to the end of the season. And a lot of teams have decided that losing is better. We saw that with the Blazers, both the team and their opponents, or there's teams, resting players because the playoffs is more important than winning any random game at the end of the season. Like, health becomes a priority and like maybe each individual game is less emphasized when you get 70 games in or 65 games in, 67 games in, 15 games left in the season. But like over the final 20 games, post All-Star, he's 23.3, 9.7, 5.2. Those are all-star numbers. If Deni Avdija averages 23, 9, and 5, he's going to make the all-star team, assuming that the Blazers are relatively competitive when we get to midseason. And the all-star game's about 55 games in, so the number I've been using is like, if he averages that over the first 45 games, and you're like 10 games out from the all-star break, that's a couple weeks, that's maybe 2.5 weeks. It's like, yeah, he's either going to make the All-Star team or he's going to headline the list of dudes who should have made the All-Star team. But I think really the question for Deni is like, not could he, right? Because yeah, he could. We've seen the production over a number of games that it is possible. Like, it's a reality. It's like, how much further can he take his game? I've talked about Deni a bunch on the show, and in the past, I've talked about how like Deni can add to his game. He could add a mid-range arsenal, or at least a pull-up type of jump shot that he is comfortable with. He doesn't have to have, 16 mid-post moves and fadeaways and pivots and all of that, but instead of being like, his best skill is that he drives hard to the rim, right? You do not want to take that away from Deni. You want guys to do what they do best. But if Deni had a pull-up going hard rights that he was comfortable with, stop on a dime, take an 11-footer, he might be able to add a little bit of variety to his game to open up the way defenses guard him, and a little bit of variety if a guy was already a darn good finisher and had a really solid three-point shooting season, then that really could change things. Deni took 26 non-paint twos out of his 502 two-point field goals. He didn't take many. I know there's this idea that he was like doing this because the team didn't want him to take mid-range jumpers, and I even read an interview where Deni said as much, but like, other players on the team take mid-range jumpers to some extent, right? Like, it's not like they made a hard and fast rule with Deni and said you can only take like, less than 10% of your two-pointers have to be from the mid-range. He knows he could expand his game there. He's talked openly about that. The league is a rim and 3-point league. He is a rim and 3-point guy. You don't really want to take it away from him. He has freedom to develop that shot. He hasn't done it very often, and he hasn't done it very well. He only made 9 of those 26 shots. That's a place where he can expand. I don't want him to take 4 or 5 Kevin Durant style mid-range pull-ups a game. I'm talking like 2 a week. Instead of 26 non-paint twos, I'm talking about him taking 61 non-paint twos, right? Like just enough to complement what he already does. He can improve his ball handling. He can improve his left-hand finishing. He can become a better playmaker, not in terms of like passing. I think he's a pretty darn good passer, and I think he showed that this year, but it's just like cutting down on his turnovers. Sometimes he can get a little too deep on his drives and make some passes like out of a crowd that go nowhere, and sometimes he can be a little aggressive and throw passes that aren't quite there. Becoming a better ball handler, being more confident going left, and cutting down on your turnovers. His assist to turnover ratio is pretty high. Like, again, I don't think Deni is a full-time point guard, but I do think more point Deni in the Blazers' future is valuable, more like Deni on the ball is valuable. He certainly showed that at the end of the season, and continuing to expand that is going to be valuable both for him, his production, and the success of the team. But I also think this, like, obviously there's things he can get better at. And then he also averaged in the second half of the season 20 points, 8 boards, and 4.5 assists without any of that in his game, right? If Deni doesn't really dramatically change his game, if the mid-range stuff never materializes, if he never becomes a strong left-hand finisher, if he can still be a little loose with the ball and turnovers, right? Like if he gets just like a little bit better, right? We're talking very, very moderate increases. He can just sharpen up what he's already good at, right? Like if he just sharpens up what he's already good at and does, slight decrease in turnovers, slightly better as a left-hand finisher. I don't know, takes 35 pull-up twos or whatever during the season, like a very, very moderate improvement, because typically guys in his, he's young, right? He's not yet, he turns 25 in next January. He's not even 20, he's not even 24 and a half yet, but like he's entering year 6 in the NBA. Typically guys who've played as much NBA basketball as him aren't making dramatic jumps. They're sharpening their skills. And if Deni, like I said, there are obvious things he can get better at, but even if he doesn't make a dramatic leap, and he just does the things that he already does well a little bit better, right? If he just is better, sharper execution at his already useful strengths, he could still have a shot at making the All-Star team, if not a straight inside track at it. If he does make a dramatic leap in any of those skills, yeah, like we're talking about a very, 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 very good basketball player. But like Deni is, with like just a sort of normal improvement that you might expect from a dude who's going to turn 25 during the season, who was already pretty good at 24, he could like be in that sort of all-star level conversation just based on the role we expect him to have and the production that he had in his first season with the Blazers. I think the bigger question, and this isn't for the Deni show, but I want to leave you with this because I think this is a question for sort of the larger Blazer picture. How good can the Blazers be if Deni is their best player? If it's right now, it's probably not good enough to be. If it's the quality that Deni was to close the year when he was already pretty friggin' good, there's a real ceiling on this team, because to make the Memphis Grizzlies won 48 games and finished 8th in the West. The bar for being competitive in the Western Conference is exceedingly high. The Clippers won 50 games and are going to open up the playoffs on the road. It is tough sledding out there. And I don't think current Deni can lift the Blazers to those heights. But if Deni continues to improve and you add more talent, then it becomes a conversation. But I think what the Blazers have to do, and I've said this in the past, is find more dudes at Deni's level. Whether those players are off the roster or they're on the roster and you grow them up to be Deni's level, that's the path. Because Deni has shown to be an important piece and an all-star cusp type of guy at his peak. The Blazers need more dudes who are flirting with that all-star cusp at their peak, and then hopefully they can all peak together. That's the path. That is going to do it for today's program. That's going to do it for our first of these. We will do a player review, a season review for everybody on the roster. Not everybody's going to get 30 minutes, but Deni deserved an entire episode. In tomorrow's show, you're not going to want to miss it. A fun first-time interview, first-time guest on the program, and we're going to preview the NBA playoffs with a Blazers lens. It's not rose-colored is not the right way to say it, but a rose garden-centric lens looking ahead to the NBA playoffs. Join me for that one, won't you, to close out the week. I appreciate you listening. Tell your friends they can find this podcast 5 days a week wherever they already get shows, already get pods, including on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.